Welcome to the GBC updates for Friday, the 19th of June. There are three things that I'd like to bring you up to speed on. First of all, just want to say thank you to all of you who have donated to May Mission Month. I can't tell you how proud I was of our community of faith to respond the way we did in the midst of COVID-19. While we didn't have quite as many donors as we have had in previous years, the fact that we exceeded the target was absolutely remarkable. In a time of uncertainty, we responded in faith, in both big-hearted generosity and with a focus on those around us. So thank you so much to those of you who did participate in that as we seek to see lives changed by Jesus all around the world. Secondly, we wanted to bring you up to speed on our current strategy for reopening. As many of you know, the restrictions are slowly lifting, and it seems every week brings some new information about when we may be able to go back. At this point in time, I want to walk you through some of the reasons why we are not planning to reopen our Sunday gatherings, probably at least until the end of August, barring some major changes. The rationale for that decision kind of goes like this. Currently, if we were to reopen, we would need to stand by and abide by the government recommendations. The government recommendations include at least three things that are really quite significant for us. First of all, we would need to be involved in contact tracing. In other words, we would need to sign every adult in who is a part of our services with a name, a phone number, or an email address and keep those on file for 28 days. Now, for our kids ministry, that's fairly easy because we've been checking our kids in for quite a long time now. But we have no real system to use to sign people in apart from using pen and paper or potentially using something through GBC links. Either way, there's an administrative a logistical problem for us to solve in that space. For those of you who have been to services and have come at, say, 8:30 on the dot or 10:30 on the dot, you know that people often drift in a little bit late as it is, and that would only be exacerbated if there was also the need to sign in. A second recommendation that would have some fairly significant restraints and constraints on our services is the government recommendation not to sing together. Singing is seen as a super spreader activity, as lots of people gathered together are breathing deeply and projecting their particles while other people around them are also doing the same. And while we could solve both of those first two dilemmas, right? We could solve the problem of checking people in and figure out a system that would work as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And there are, of course, lots of ways in which we can turn our hearts to the Lord in worship. That doesn't include corporate singing together. The third recommendation is perhaps the most significant for us. And that is that regardless of how many people are in the building, this has been the same for groups of up to 50, it's the same for groups of up to 100, and if the restrictions continue to ease and you are allowed more than 100 people, this restriction still stands, and that is you need to have 4 square meters per person. In terms of what that would look like in our auditorium, it looks a little bit like this. I should probably just pause and kind of comment on the fact that there's no carpet. For those of you who remember the rain and the rain damage that we had earlier in the year, the decision of the insurance company was to replace the carpet in the auditorium, and so it's been torn up, and we're obviously waiting the replacement. But this is what it would look like for us to gather together 4 square meters per person. Families would not be able to sit together. They would be separated, as you can see here. This is just part of what it would look like for us to gather. Our current facility, in terms of the main auditorium, could potentially hold up to 116 people just on sheer square meterage. However, that would include having people sitting on the platform. It would include having people sitting in the corners where they wouldn't be able to hear the speakers. It would also mitigate against everyone being able to join us for morning tea. Because in our foyer and atrium space, we only have capacity for up to 60 people. So morning tea and PM dinners would both be restricted in terms of the number of people. That is, of course, if we decided to actually serve food with the added complication that that brings. Until this restriction is changed, until the amount of space per person changes, we feel that it is not really appropriate for us to go back to Sunday gatherings. The other kind of piece, for those of you who've kind of done the math on this, is that if we could only have 100 people in our auditorium, we're currently running at, with children, a little over 500 people on a Sunday. We would either have to multiply our services out, or we would have to come up with some sort of lottery system or have ticketed events. They'd be free tickets, but you'd have to kind of queue up and get your ticket. Or as some churches are doing, people with the surname A to G might show up and you just kind of hope all your friends are in your same surname bracket, and on and on and on it goes. On top of all of that, there are the implications if there were to be a new COVID case in one of our gatherings. Not only would we have to contact the hundreds of people who had been through the building in the last number of weeks, but we'd also then have to shut the building down and clean the building thoroughly. That would also mean that our online services we'd have to record someplace else because the building would also be closed. We want to be cautious, as the government and the Baptist Association is urging us to be, to take this slowly as we go. So at this point in time, we are not likely to return to any kind of Sunday services here in this facility until at least the end of August, barring some major change, particularly to the restrictions on the number of people per square meter. We just wanted to kind of let you know that that's where our thinking lies and what we're doing with the information that we're getting from both the government and from the Baptist Association. However, we are also aware that there are other ministries apart from our Sunday services. So life groups, many of whom have been meeting digitally, can now, if they choose, also meet in homes. We'd encourage life groups who do go back to meeting in homes to do so carefully. Where possible, continue to keep some distancing and spacing. If there's a large number of people in particular, we'd probably discourage you from singing and to be as careful as we can. But we're also hoping that we might be able to launch connect groups. Connect groups is something that we've been talking about for a while and had some plans to start at the beginning of the year, and then COVID-19 restrictions came into effect. Connect groups are 3 to 4 life groups who join together basically to socialize and introduce people to members of potential life groups. It's a way for people to meet others and find a way in and find a way to connect without the necessary kind of intimidation of showing up to someone's house and having a relatively significant conversation with 7 or 8 people who you just met. This is kind of an easier way to connect. And we're hoping that we might be able to launch those. The numbers are a little bit smaller. There's a little bit more flexibility in terms of space. Many of them can meet outdoors, and on it goes. So we're moving in that direction and hope to give you some information about that in the next few weeks. But if you or others have had these sorts of questions, hopefully that clears up some of that. I'm sorry it took a little bit longer, but it is a really significant decision for us to decide to reopen and what and where we can. Just one final note, we are in discussions about the youth ministry and when the youth ministry can go back as well. And as soon as we have nailed down those details, Matt Willis and the rest of the leadership team will be in touch with you if you have kids in that category in particular. The final thing then to just let you know about in relationship to the life of the church is that we are planning to hold our first ever online church meeting. We're still working out the exact date that we're going to do that. It'll probably be the 19th or the 26th of July, and we'll confirm that for you next week. The Baptist Association has done some excellent work to help churches figure out whether or not they can constitutionally hold an online meeting. It turns out that we are probably able to do so, and we will do so, as I said, near the end of July. In the next week, we'll give you not only the firm date, but also begin to explain to you how that's going to work, the sorts of ways that you can prepare to be a part of that meeting and part of our ongoing discussion of what it means for us to be a community of faith. So thank you again to those of you who have contributed to May. I hope that kind of background to reopening gives you an understanding about why we are delaying any kind of reopening here. And also just keep your eyes out for the information about the upcoming church meeting. Hope to see you on Sunday in the online chat at one of our services at gbconline.org.au, 8:30, 10:30, or 6 p.m. We would love it if you just kind of say hello in the chat so we can picture your face. It's so nice to see people just say hello and just be able to imagine where they are in their living room or in their lounge room or wherever it might be in their home, perhaps with a few other people as well. Let us know that you're there. Participate with us as we continue to listen and respond to the invitation of God to join Him in His renewing work around the world. Till then, God bless.